Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have across from you here, Tyzer Evans. What's up, brother?
How's it going, Jeff?
I'm excited to have you here, man. You have, I was quickly looking at your IG profile, and there's tons of things happening. We have Grind, Sell, Elevate podcast. We have your foundation book, Legion, which is, I guess, your program as well that you run.
So the Book Legion is actually another podcast that's dedicated to just book reviews.
Oh, very, very cool. So we're going to dive into that. So how I always start off our podcast, we actually just let the guests get to know what you're currently up to, what you're currently doing. Then we'll let the conversation flow and just flow with there. So what are you up to?
So, man, I do a lot. By day, I'm working currently for a Fortune 100 company, helping insurance brokers find benefits for small to medium-sized businesses like 200 to 500 employees. I do some sales coaching. Just actively now starting to help my father-in-law grow his chain of restaurants. So looking at bringing on new franchisees in different territories across the country. And then I do the 2 podcasts, and then I've got 2 boys that are 4 and 6, 3 dogs, and I'm married.
That is awesome. Let me the franchises. What's the name of the franchise?
So the name of the franchise is Jimmy Hula's, and it's a chain of restaurants out in Florida right now. They've been around about 10 years, and they do kind of gourmet burgers and tacos and whatnot. You get a very surf theme, very good food. Yeah, it's fun.
How many franchises do you guys have open currently?
I think they have 12 right now. Very,
very good. So that's not bad. And it's just right across the Florida? Are you guys planning to go across different states?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going to be helping out a little bit. So my brother-in-law is the one that runs the restaurants in Florida. He lives in Orlando, where my wife grew up, and my father-in-law is a CEO, but he's out in Orange County, California. And so we're looking to expand into Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, then here in Texas.
Very, very cool. So the podcasts, when did you originally start pen to paper with the idea of starting a podcast?
3 years ago. So 3 years ago, May. It actually, I never intended on doing a podcast. I was specifically just going to do a YouTube channel. And I've been in sales a long time and had a lot of success in sales and managing and as a rep, and just saw the need for people just need good, concrete advice. It's hard because you get into this space where this influencer space where you've got guys like, I love Grant Cardone and Gary Vee and those types of guys and Ed Mylett, right? They're like juggernauts, but not the average guy who makes 60 grand can't always relate to someone who's making 500 million. And so me having, I 10x my income in sales. So I was like, well, maybe I might be more relatable to some people to help you get from 60 to 85 or from 85 to 110, having done that myself. So I just thought, hey man, I'm just an average guy that's had some success. So I might be a bit more relatable.
So you're one of it sounds crazy. 3 years does not sound like a long time, but that is essentially almost like an OG of podcasting, because the last 12 months has just been an explosion. I mean, they're saying there's right now just under 1.8 million live podcasts happening. I mean, most after 5 to 10 episodes, they give up. That's just realistic with it, because most people don't have the drive and the determination and just the work ethic to keep it going, because there is a lot of work to put a podcast and keep it flowing consistently. How many episodes do you go a week?
I do 2. So every Monday, Thursday, I release an episode. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And how far ahead are you recording right now?
Really far. So this is, it's been a learning curve, Jeff. It's just, I just basically started ripping the audio from the YouTubes and then throwing them on the podcast just to see if I would hit more people. And now it's turned into me being a lot more focused on the podcast. And so as it grew, people started asking, hey, you got a good following. Can I come on? And I did for the first 95 episodes. I didn't interview anybody.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. So I started having some cool guests come on. And then as that, how it is. And then you get out there and then more and more people, then I have a hard time saying no. And so now I was actually just looking, I got my content book here. So I scheduled all out. I have enough to go through June right now. Already recorded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm not that crazy ahead as you are, but we're going on We've pre-recorded 106 and we just released number 92. And then we
nice.
still have, we're probably, I actually for March, I have 4 left, 4, but I've kind of started winging them away because we have pre-booked another exactly like you till the end of April almost already. So
Right.
yeah, it's very easy not to say no because you start building relationships, start building networking. And so when you started the podcast, you had that intention. Is there any other intentions you had with it, like networking or growing? Because when I started my podcast, I had 2 purposes. I didn't care about monetizing. My podcast was strictly networking and branding myself. Was that actually part of your branding strategy? Because I see with your colors and everything, you're great at the branding aspect of it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that again, it was a work in progress. But yeah, I just thought that, hey, the more people I could touch, law of reciprocity, maybe along the way, I make some great relationships, which I have. But yeah, it was the same thing. It was mostly just to give back, have a little branding exposure as someone who is an authority, a thought leader when it comes to sales or leadership or management, as I've been kind of known as a fixer, gone around the country fixing sales teams. So yeah.
That is very, very cool. So how many episodes have you released so far?
I've released, I think, 137.
Okay. That's very, very good. So your second podcast, so you're already busy enough. What was the mindset with starting a second podcast?
Well, I enjoy doing it. I read about a book a week. And if you looked at the analytics from the podcast and a YouTube channel, by and large, the book reviews always do the best.
Yeah.
And so I just said, hey, as opposed to just doing it here or there, because I was kind of inconsistent when I was doing the book reviews.
Yeah.
I said, well, man, why don't you just do one circled around that? So I did the book Legion because I like Romans, the Legionnaires. So I was like, I can kind of create a tribe and a community around people who are invested in personal development or, investing, health, wellness. Kind of, it has, about 6-7 different pillars I'm going to hit on any given week.
Very good. So how long are they're very short little reviews you're doing? Are you doing them daily?
No, so I just do one a week because I can't read that fast, nor do I have the time. So I read it says if I do a book a week, so I try to, I start Sunday night with a new book and I try to have it finished by Saturday night, and then I record and release everything on Sunday.
Is this audiobook or reading?
Reading. Yeah, I don't do audiobooks.
Good for you. Good for you. I just having that dedication to time, right? I mean, it's such a, I always say for anybody that's trying to learn, grow, develop, having an indirect mentor through a book is incredible because you're essentially taking somebody's 15, 20 years of knowledge, and for 15, 20 bucks and a week, 2 weeks of your life, you're sucking all the positive and all the lessons they've learned. So I think reading is such a valuable tool, just having the time. And I really focus on audiobook because it's the time. And then when I get to late at night, I usually journal late at night, and it's like, even to pick up a book, my eyes are tired that time all day on the phone and all that. So it's pretty strenuous. So in general, where other ventures are you going to? So you're helping with obviously the family business. You have the 2 podcasts. You said you do coaching as well?
Yeah. So one-on-one coaching, people reach out to me, set up anywhere from a 3-month to a 6-month schedule. We meet with them once a week for an hour and just try to help. I've only taken on a few people right now just because my time is spread so thin. But, a lot of people in their early to mid-20s that jump into sales because they like the uncapped potential of commission. You find it doesn't matter if you work for a big company, a small company, there's usually not very much structure with how to understand metrics, how to put in together a sales sequence, how to tactfully get after people, how to write voicemail scripts, those types of things. So just helping people with that.
Where's your mindset when it comes to, obviously this is something you're passionate about, this is your career, but where's your mindset with the educational system when it comes to sales?
Well, just in general,
So what I mean by that, and I'll let you dive into your own mindset with it, is I think sales, and when I was 19, 20 years old, I had a mentor with sales, and I was actually running sales programs at 19, 20 with a company I had. It was in the fitness industry, but it was selling, teaching walkthroughs and selling PAPs and all that stuff to gym owners and sales teams for gyms. And so even back then I was learning commonality, I was building rapport, all the basic stuff of sales. I find sales is one of those tools that everybody should have. And I think it's one of those things that it should be almost a mandatory to teach in school. Like I think public speaking, sales, and networking are 3 things that right through high school that should be taught that are not taught. Where's your mindset with that?
I totally agree. I tell people if you can acquire two skills, being able to sell and being able to lead, you will always be with the job.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. So I totally agree. We can talk about the educational system, and we've both got kids, so they're going
Yeah.
through it. But, it's flawed in a lot of different ways. It's the same thing with the financial literacy. And I just think that the model's broken, and I think it's going to start to shift into more master classes and more vocational style schooling. I just think we'll see that evolve over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. And I think that it should. I think, it's not serving people. They're coming, we're seeing it. Like, the next big debt crisis is going to be student loan debt.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Right. And they're coming out, they're not having tangible skills. Like they can theoretically tell you a lot, but they can't tell you how to purchase a home. That's a problem.
Yeah. How to purchase a home, how to manage their money, how to do very direct stuff. Even like a lot of people our communication, our generation, our children's generation is learning is through a phone, right? So that one-on-one face communication, knowing how to talk to somebody, how to ask a question. That is something I'm very, very passionate about with my kids, is teaching them how to properly ask a question. And I think that's a tool that a lot of kids don't know. When they get into the real world, they don't know how to properly ask a question. So I think that's another valuable tool as well. How old are your little ones?
4 and 6.
Oh, so they're little tiny ones still.
Yeah.
Boys or girls?
2 boys.
2 boys. What does fatherhood mean to you? How does it change your life?
It's everything. Honestly, hope my wife doesn't listen to this, but she's like, she bangs on me all the time. She's like, like you're more concerned about being a father than you are a husband. And to some extent that can be true. I know that
listen to me. You're with if your wife's listening to us, I'm okay with that. You're like every other guy. Cause I will look at my wife and I'll say the same. It's funny because I had a guest on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we just started talking about the fatherhood and parenting and your spouse and your partner. And he said something to me. I'm like, man, you shouldn't have said that on. But he was like, he goes, the importance of my children and my wife. He goes, the only way I could truly come across and tell you how I feel about it is a situation where, if you're in a life and death situation and you got a gun, where are you going to point the gun to? And he said that to me. I was like, wow, wow. I go, wow. But it's, once you become a parent, I look at it as unconditional love. You finally love something more than you love yourself.
100%. Yeah. And I had a really interesting childhood. And so I was just been hell-bent and determined to make sure that my kids had a completely different experience. And so it's something that's been really important to me that I've been focused on and cognizant of way before I ever had kids. I was setting up my life for the moment that I did. So it's been a very rewarding, very challenging, obviously. But yeah, it's been the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, anything challenging, it's going to push you and grow you, and anything that's truly good in this world is going to challenge you, right? Do you mind me diving into your childhood?
Sure.
So give me a little run. Where were you brought up? How many siblings did you have? Give me a little rundown of your childhood.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little town in Northern California. I grew up right in the heart of the wine country in Sonoma County. The last city in Sonoma County, a little town called Cloverdale, California. It's about 5,500 people. Now it's about 8,500, so it's really grown over the last 30 years. Beautiful little town set right on the Russian River, but not a lot to do. You're about 35 miles from, any quote-unquote big city. About 80 miles north of San Francisco is where I grew up. I got 2 little brothers. We just grew up lower middle class. My parents both struggled with alcohol and addiction for the majority of my childhood. And so that just, shapes you, and you get exposed to things that are abnormal from a lot of your peers.
So how you still have a close relationship with your siblings?
Yeah. Both my brothers, the one that's closer to my age, I'm the oldest. I'm 36. The one that's 34, I talk to almost once or twice a week. And then my little brother's 30, and we chat occasionally.
Yeah. So seeing your parents, like you said, obviously with addiction, there's issues with addiction. How did that change your mindset growing up? Even just with your looking, how you relate to alcohol or you relate to drugs or anything like that? Where's your mindset with that? And I'll explain why I'm asking that in a sec.
Sure. Yeah, man, I was really straight edge. And so in high school, when all of my friends decided it'd be cool to go get fucked up and start drinking and experience, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this.
We're
good.
Whatever.
We're good.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I got a potty mouth. And I just said, I saw all the bad things happen, you know. I saw the violence, and I saw the arguments, and I saw the issues, and I don't want any part of that. And only destruction comes from those vices. So I just stayed as far away as possible, and I got made fun of quite a bit. And then my only saving grace was I was a good athlete and a good student. So, you know, I still was, you know, fit in, you know, it made my high school experience a lot easier. But yeah, my friends, you know, always, they always ridiculed me constantly. I just never cared.
I'm literally a splitting image of you in a different direction. But I like, even till this day, if I have half a glass of rosé once a year, it's like a big deal. Like I don't drink at all. I mean, I don't do drugs. I never did. And the whole alcohol aspect is on my mom's side, my grandfather had, coming from Portugal, European, all big dudes. And there was 11 brothers, one sister. Of the 11 brothers, 8 of them died alcoholics.
Oh man.
Yeah. So 8 of them died alcoholics. So 11 brothers, think about that. As a family, 11 brothers, all of them, like I'm 6'2", they're all 6'2" to 6'4", 200 something pound boys, like big dudes, feeding big. Yeah. So so I saw how it affected my mom growing up. So as a kid, I would see my mom always talk about it. Like my mom, my grandparents split, which is back in the European days in Portugal, that was not a common thing. So they split, and my mom ended up staying with her dad, which was abusive and alcoholic. So I saw how much it affected her. So from a young age, I remember one day I went out with my friends. I was 16. It was a weekend. I came back and I was a little wasted, and from the park, whatever. You're a kid, right? And I remember coming home and seeing my mom cry, and I had a deep conversation with her. And she's like, "Listen," she was, "my biggest fears," because at that time we had uncles, we had other a lot of people from her side were alcoholics, and it was very touching to her. And it was something that age, I was like 16 or 17. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to see my mom like this, and and it just bothered me so much that I put in my head, and from there on, that was it. I would hang out with my buddies, but I wouldn't drink. And the same thing, I would be the awkward one, not drinking, but I ended up being the designated driver all the time, so they liked me anyhow. I was the only one with a car that age, right? Because I already had my own first little business going and stuff. But yeah, it's incredible how having that entrepreneurial mindset where making your own decisions, not being scared of what other people think is so, at a young age, you do all those things. Did you ever see yourself, like when you first, what was your first, before your current career right now, what were you doing prior work-wise?
I've been in insurance a long time. Since 2009, I graduated college in 2007. So I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for a couple of years right out of college. And then in college, I worked in the surf industry. I was down in San Diego where I went to school.
So surf, are you a surfer?
Well, it's hard to do that in Texas. But yeah, when I lived in California, yeah, I did surf a little bit.
How long have you been in Texas now for?
I've been in Texas 2 years.
Yeah, Texas is becoming a really hot spot. What part of Texas are you at?
I'm in Houston.
Houston, yeah. Texas is becoming a real, I mean, all you hear is like a hotbed for entrepreneurs. Everybody just keeps moving there and moving there and moving there and moving there. Great taxes. I mean, you guys had a little snow recently, but besides that, the weather's usually good.
Oh yeah, it's great. That's what kind of screwed us, was just, we're not, I mean, pipes are insulated, so they all just start exploding and cracking. But yeah, it was funny. I was like making fun of everybody. They're like, "Oh my God, the snow." I'm like, "Come on, man. What do you think the other part of the country does for 6 months out of the year, man? They're not dealing with snow every day."
Yeah, that's us here. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I figured with the Blue Jays hat.
There you go. There you go. So how long have you been married for?
I've been married. It will be 7 years in July.
And give me a little rundown of your marriage. How supportive is your wife, and what does she mean to you?
Oh, my wife is awesome, man. She's we met when I was 28. She had just turned 22. And so I was really apprehensive about going out with someone that was that much younger. At the time, it seemed like a big difference because she was still in college. Yeah. And I tell this story. I don't know if she feels the same way, but I tell the story. We met online on Match.com. This is before Tinder and all that stuff was a thing. So thank God. And we went on our first date. And I just remember, like, we were in this restaurant in Jane's in Santa Barbara. And man, I just felt like the luckiest guy in the restaurant. She was so beautiful. And I didn't know this, but at the time, because we've been chatting online, my wife's extremely smart. She was like pre-med at Florida State and wanted to go that route. Ended up pivoting careers and whatnot, but she's very articulate, very intelligent. And I just said, that's it. This is the girl. I don't need to look anymore. Yeah. And we were engaged 10 months later, and then married a year later after that. And shortly after had our first son.
So you guys been married for what, 8 years, 9 years?
Yeah. So we've been together 9 years actually next month, and been married for 7 in July.
Very, very cool. Yeah. I'm going on to 18 years already.
Yeah.
Time flies, buddy. And you're 30. You said that you're 36?
36.
I'm 44. So we were a little gap there. Yeah. I had my first, my daughter at 29. So my daughter's 29, 28, 29. She's in high school already. She's 14.
Yeah. How's that?
It's interesting. Like I've for the last 12 years, and we'll talk when I get in your podcast, but for 12 years, I really studied parenting and focused on parenting. There's certain things I've built from day one with our kids. I'll give you an example. And this is something, I don't know if you do, but I think is very precious is, for the last 11 and a half years, I'm home for dinner pretty much every single night. Mm-hmm. Because I find having a meal and having that open conversation when your kids are young and having that relaxed conversation, it starts building up as they get older. So now we've been doing this for so many years that I can sit in front of my 14-year-old daughter that's in high school, and she'll have an open conversation and talk about life and talk about her friends and talk about everything because she's been doing it for so many years. So she's such a good kid. Like and the thing is we've put our kids both, if you see our Facebook and all that, Instagram pages, like we're all into fitness. The whole family's into fitness. We all work out. So I work out with my 12-year-old like 4 or 5 days a week. He's my training partner. So fitness and working out and dance and baseball, they've always been so heavily involved into activities. Mm-hmm. And we've had such a cool way of building memories with them. So they're such good kids, man. But high school, I feel so bad for her because she started high school this year, and in your first year in high school, where she's going to school Monday and Tuesday for 2 hours, and then she's rest is homeschooling, right? Because the high schools are not still fully open here, and it's just a weird experience, right? They're not getting the full understanding of high school. And I don't even think they're really learning, to be honest.
Yeah, we're in a way different predicament. I wouldn't say predicament. We've been really blessed because the Texas opened schools up back in September full time. And my wife and I are on the same page, with the death rate of the kids that age of 99.9999% 7, survival rate. We're like, you're going to school, bro. Yeah. So we put both our kids back in school because we tried to do it for 3 weeks. And I think my oldest son, he probably would be diagnosed with ADHD. He's just that kid. He stopped napping at 18 months. He's touching everything. He's all over. So putting him in front of a computer.
Yeah.
Not happening.
No. My son, like like I said, when I get in your podcast, you hear the story of my son, but he loves school. And so he goes to school full time. So anything from grade 8 and under go full time. Mm. So that's still, he's been, we had the break. They shut the schools down prior to Christmas break. They shut it down. He's went back last week officially. So it was 7.5 weeks closed again. But he's back now full time, which is so needed for kids. So needed. They don't talk about the mental health. They don't talk about the socialization. Like, it's so important, especially at that age, for kids to socialize, to talk, to interact with other kids. And it's something they don't do or talk about at all.
I totally agree. Especially, both of my kids never had the stranger danger, when they go through that phase. Yeah. Mine never had it. Especially my oldest one, he's 3 and he's very, very articulate. And you're just in a grocery store and he'd be like, "Hey, how are you?" It's like a complete stranger. He was just always that kid. So he needs that social interaction. It's so important for who he is as a person.
Yeah. 100%. It's so important. So give me a little rundown of your podcast. So with your guests and stuff, give me a great story, like one moment in your podcast that you're just like, wow, what a great story, or a great person, or something that happened that really put almost like a stamp, like, this is why I'm doing it.
Man, there's been it's really hard. I've talked to some really incredible people. A couple that pop out. I talked to this guy, Trav Bell. Okay. He's from Australia. He's the world's #1 bucket list guy. And he's got several kids as well. And he's been an entrepreneur. A guy you probably would love to talk to, but he's very focused on, creating your life's resume. in a way that like, it's not all about work and the hustle and the grind. It's about doing those things, but also being very strategic about creating, like you're talking about with your family, wonderful memories, not just always planning like your one vacation a year.
Yeah.
Right. Or waiting until retirement. And so the way that he framed everything, that was really impactful. I talked to a guy, Marcus Ogden, who's used to play for the Titans in the NFL and spent some time in the league, got out of the league, started an 8-figure construction company and lost it all through some bad financial mishaps and ended up he was a janitor making like $8 an hour, like on a night shift. And rebounded from that, and now is speaking all over the country doing motivational speaking. So just people that really just through perseverance and strategically planning their lives, it just kind of opened my eyes at what I've been through. Is maybe been challenging, but it's not unique. Maybe I talked to a guy yesterday, David Knowles, he was the creator and executive producer for Chopped.
Oh, very cool.
And just talking to him about his stories of knowing Celine Dion and Tom Cruise, and just like, but like how he had to get into the industry, working as an intern for free, for like, for 2 years.
Yeah.
So just really cool people, man. They've just done some really incredible things with their lives. It's just inspiring.
Yeah. The grind. I mean, you always love hearing stories like that, the comeback stories or the grind stories and stuff like that, where, I mean, that's one thing with the podcast. You just never know where the conversation is going to go. Right. So we just love hearing those stories of just the comeback and the grind and whatnot with yourself and the podcast and all that. And you're obviously into your reviews of books. Have you taken pen to paper to write your own book yet?
I have not. I wrote like a little ebook on how to follow up and stuff like that, but I never have. It's something that I've had a lot of people tell me that really know the details of my story, leaving and the craziness and some of the stuff that happened. They're like, man, that would be a good movie, and I haven't sat down and really thought about it or put much emphasis on it yet. But I think it'll be maybe something I do in my 40s. It's kind of, I feel like that time frame.
That's
going
funny.
through some other transitions.
That's
right
funny.
now.
Yeah, I took pen to paper in March and I released our book, my book called Entrepreneurial Dad, 4 weeks ago. So in my 40s.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah. That was fun. It was just fun because putting pen to paper and I'm going to send you a copy, but just putting pen to paper and just writing and just putting thoughts on and actually in the process. I liked it so much. I'm in the process. I'm already on chapter 3 of my second one.
Oh, cool. Good for you.
The first one was just a short, let me get it out. It's more of a statement of just to add validation to myself for what I do and stuff like that and my knowledge. So I think that when you're talking, I think even it's the sales aspect of it. If you putting one with your knowledge and putting in there, it'll be an easy sale because there's so many people that need to learn that stuff, right? So putting your knowledge on there. You keep saying your story. You give me more detail of that? You keep teasing on this.
Well, man, it was just, I told you, so my parents, they got divorced when I was 3.5.
Yeah.
They split, at one point, it was interesting. So I got a text from my, I think I can probably say this on here because this will release after I make my shift. I just got a new job offer for a vice president gig with a new. This
is going to be released in about 24 hours. No, I'm joking.
No, I'll be like, oh, fuck. Well, we got to hold off on that, Jeff, because I haven't told my current company that I'm leaving. But I got a new job offer as a sales vice president for a new big stop loss company. It's a really cool, like, awesome opportunity. So my dad texted me. He was like, hey man, he's always been my biggest fan as much as he's gone through. And he was just like, hey, your age, 37, because I'll be 37 this month. He's like, I was divorced and living on a tent down by the river. Like, wow. True story. He took me for a bit, really without my mom's permission. And we were living and down in a tent. And then we eventually got into a cabin and, there was just a lot of stuff. There was a lot of abuse, some overdoses. And then,
how old were you when you went through that with living in the tent?
4.
Oh,
3,
wow.
4.
So you're still quite young. You have valid memories of those still?
Vague memories of it. Yeah, very, very vague memories. And this type of stuff, this chaos, and then my dad and my stepdad just didn't get along. And, there was a lot of stuff there to unpack. And my relationship with my stepdad was very tumultuous and with my little brother. And
So is your little brother your stepbrother?
The
Your
No.
youngest? Okay,
Yeah, the youngest brother is my half brother, technically.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, your half brother. Okay.
Yeah, we have the same mom, different dads,
Yeah,
and then the one closest to me with the same parents.
Yeah.
So it was just, just crazy stuff. I mean, they got into, physical altercations. I remember being 5 and my dad showing up to my mom's apartment, and my dad had his chin split open because he got cut with a razor blade and was holding his face together, and he's trying to talk to me. And, it was just a wild time. And I didn't really have any safe places, because there was a lot of chaos at my dad's house when I'd go over there, and there was a lot of chaos at my mom's. And so I was kind of just encompassed in chaos. As a little guy, there wasn't a lot of space for my feelings or for me to be vocal. And so, it was tough.
As a dad, how is that related to, like you said, I love what you said there, space to be vocal and space to just be yourself. How has that changed as a dad? Like, what do you do to allow your kids to be vocal and talk and all this? I want to tell you, because I'll tell you what I do in a bit. Maybe I always love giving dad advice, even though you're still a young dad, right? So
yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. No, I need it, because it's a constant effort. I've done a lot of therapy on how to get rid of my imprinting, because when my kids do something wrong, my knee-jerk reaction is to go right to anger, because that's how I was dealt with. Was just extreme anger, right? Intimidation.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's just definitely with my kids, I give them like a 5 count, just staying patient. We try to talk about it. I'd always acknowledge their feelings, try to make it so like I'm their safe place.
Yeah.
I'm their safe haven. And, I come down on them when suppose 2 boys, they don't always care.
There has to be that fine line of respect.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And I learned that from my father, because my father, European, old school European, never laid a finger on me, but would just look at me, and I knew, okay, time to put my tail between my legs and shut up. So it's that respect level. And I think you have to have that fine level of respect too, especially as they get older. But that bond of I'm their best friend, but at the same time too, when things switch, being able to switch that switch and be able to have that respect level, I think is so valid. One thing I do, and I think I don't know if this is something you do already, but I think it's such a great little thing to do is, you talked about vacation and all that. A lot of people are like, oh, I go on vacation with my kids once a year or twice a year, and that's our time to get. That's all bullshit. So what I do is, I do it 6 times a year. Every 8 weeks, I take one kid. Do it separately, because you got 2 kids. It's very important. I do it separately. So I separate them, and I'll take my daughter and I'll pull her from school for the day or do something like that, or on the Saturday. And it's just me and her day. And it's just memory building day. Let's go do our meals. Let's go have coffee. Let's go whatever. Let's go have lunch together, have a brunch, whatever. And it's the whole day, morning to night. It's just me and her. And then I do it with my son separately. So we build separate memories. And I'm all about, when it comes to accomplishments, I'm all about awarding them with time, not presents. Because a lot of people will turn around and be like, oh, here's a present. The kid will look at the present. They don't care about the present. They care about the affection, their dad, and the realization that their dad realized what they did and accomplished. So that whole moment of that present is just more of a, wow, dad's so happy for me. So what I do is when they accomplish something, I'll actually take that and, okay, let's go hang out. Let's go have lunch together. Let's go celebrate. And I create a memory. Let's go to the batting cage. Let's go create a memory so they could lock that moment with the memory of me. So one day when I'm not here, they could go back and tell their kids or their grandkids their memories they built of me. So I think it's all about building special memories, keeping them separate, because I think kids appreciate that so much more, that you can have that separation and that one-on-one with each of them, right, as they get older.
I love that. And I do think it's very important. I'm going to ask you this, you can give me some advice, because like my oldest, he's a total daddy's boy. Like he's so attached to me. Like he wants to sleep with me every night, and like last night he's such a crazy sleeper. My wife just goes and sleeps upstairs when he wants to sleep in our room. But he tells me, I go, Knox, I go, dude, like you gotta sleep in your room most nights. He goes, yeah, but I like just laying in bed and talking to you. Like I like talking to you. And then he is so intense. He tries to take so much of my time. I feel like a harder time getting to my 4-year-old. or he doesn't get that same exposure, because then my 6-year-old would get jealous.
Yeah.
And
So
that's been challenging.
I would sit down with them both and individually say, listen, I love you both equally, and I want to block in time to spend equally with you guys. So when you're not with me, the other one will be with mom, or the other one, and separate that time and actually make an intentional time. So, okay, and make them see it. So it's like, okay, 9 till 10 o'clock, potentially, I'm going to go do this with thing, or I'm going to, and have that intentional time. And the whole thing with, I mean, my mindset is, I mean, with the sleeping thing, I mean, they're small ones. I don't care. Like honestly, I live every day where with the mindset of, and I learned this years ago, probably about a couple of years ago, when it was probably one of my early 40s, 41, 42, I started realizing, I would start looking at my parents, I'm like, they're getting really old. And then I started realizing like certain aspects where I've been always the type where I do not want to live with regret. Mm-hmm. But it's been so much more precise the last year and a half, 2 years, because I hate when, and this will go towards your children, but just in life in general, I hate when I hear a buddy of mine or a friend of mine come like, oh, my dad just died and I wish I had more time with him. And I would look at that guy, I'm like, you're the same shit that wouldn't call your dad for 6 months.
Right.
And I hate that shit. Right. So having that mindset where living with regret. So if my dad calls me now and says, Jeff, can you come help me with this? Before I'd be like, yeah, I'll be there on Saturday. Now I'll be like, I'll drop it and go now, because I don't want to drive home and think like something would happen to him. I'd be like, regret it the rest of my life. So I try not to live with regret. So when my kids want to spend time with me, I drop everything. I call it the yes factor. I drop anything. They want to hang out with me. That's cool. You know what? Work will still be there tomorrow. If I'm talking to you right now and my kids were a call, I pick up the phone, because you know what? If you're a true man, you don't give a shit if I'm going to deal with my kids. So right. I have that mindset where spending time with them, sleeping with them, all, you know what? They're young, they're small ones. There's a stat. They say 90% of the FaceTime we spend with our kids is before the age of 18.
Yeah, I believe it.
So you think about that stat. I mean, you have it from now, yours are 4 and 7. Believe me, I went through it. Before you snap your fingers, they're going to be in high school, and they're going to be cool, and they're going to be jocks, and they're going to want to hang out with their girlfriends. And it's going to get less and less. So spend as much time as you can with them now, and just block it. I would just intentionally try to separate it and sit down and make them understand that you love them both, and you got to equally give them attention both, and they both have to understand that, right? So if you intentionally tell them, and remember you talked about ask the questions or explain, have a conversation as if almost they're adults. Make them sit down and obviously dumb the wording down, but sit down with them and have an open conversation with them. Say, listen, this is why I love hanging out with you. I want to hang out with you, but I love you both, and I need to spread the times both, and make them understand that, right? Because there is times when you don't pay attention and things happen. I'm going to give you a little, this is your podcast, but I'm going to give you a little 2-second story. Sure. Of my daughter. Yeah. So my son, we'll talk about it on your podcast more, but he was diagnosed with CP, cerebral palsy, when he was born. We spent the first 4 months as sick kids, and he was supposed to be confined to a wheelchair. We worked our ears off. From wheelchair, we got him to braces. We got him out of braces. Now his 12th birthday, he's getting ready to run his first marathon. It's been like this crazy journey. And I focused so much attention on my son. It was hours and hours a day, therapy, stretching, working out, getting the walk. And so we did all these things, hours and hours. And my daughter was doing dance since she was about 4 years old, and always wanted to do competitive dance, but really never asked for it. And 2.5 years ago, she came to me and she goes, Dad, she goes, I've been always wanting to be on the competitive team, but I realized, this is my daughter, 12-year-old, coming is having an open conversation with me, saying, I realized that Tiago needed so much attention. I didn't want to take away from that, because I knew how much he needed. How crazy is that? I literally had a tear in my eye, and she's like, but she goes, he's doing so much better now. And is there any way you could allow me to try out for the competitive team? She goes, and I said, like, see, competitive dance is a different world altogether. I said, okay, Sierra, I go, try out for the part-time team. And if you do well with it, you do well with it, there's only 2 competitions, 1 recital. Do well with it, we'll talk about the full-time team the year after. So she was all excited. We paid. She tried out for the part-time team. She made the team. She did her 2 recitals. Of course, she finishes her 2 competitions, finished platinum first in both, shut me up. I didn't realize how good she was because I really wasn't even paying attention. The next year she comes up to me and goes, Dad, I want to try out for the full-time team. You probably like, you know what? I'm going to keep my word. We're trying to probably try out for the full-time team. Of course, made the team. She comes to me a couple days later. She goes, Dad, there's a high performance team for all Toronto. And she was about 415 high performance dancers. She goes, there's no one going to make it. These girls have been like high performance dancers for so long. It's $40 to try out. Can I get to school for the experience? I'm like, cool. I go, let's do it. So I grabbed her, put her in her car. We went down there, sat in the car for 3 hours. She went inside, did these things, came in, never heard back from them. But a week and a half later, I get a phone call. Guess what? My daughter made the high performance team. that our lives are upside down now. It's like 7 days a week dance. It's crazy. But the funny part is I was so proud of her, and I was so proud that for 12 years, she sacrificed her level and everything she wanted because she saw how much her brother needed. So it's crazy that indirectly we're mentoring our kids, but not really realizing it. And then I ended up, fun story is I didn't even tell her. So I ended up taking her to we have a Starbucks down the street from us. We walked to the Starbucks and, we were sitting at the Starbucks and I made the girl at the cup, right? You've made the sip team, and the girl right on the cup, you write the sip team. So she's drinking, and then all of a sudden, like, look at the cup, and she starts bawling. So I actually put on Instagram a crazy moment, but it's those moments where we're indirectly mentoring or teaching our kids without even realizing it.
Yes.
So sometimes, like I said, long answer to your question is just sit down, separate them, and have a good open conversation with them. Just be honest.
No, I love that, and I appreciate the advice. Yeah, and I hopefully that I'm mentoring the right way. I like to think that I am. It's always nice as a parent. I heard my 6-year-old, he's really into basketball, and I like to think it's for me, but probably more his mom. But he's both of them are pretty gifted little athletes, and we've already put them in soccer and basketball and baseball and rock climbing, and they're all over karate. They're all over, and so my 4-year-old, he can't shoot on a 10-foot hoop yet because he's 4, right? Yeah. But he weighs more than my 6-year-old. He's a big kid. And my 6-year-old, but he's good. He can shoot on a 10-foot hoop with a regular sized ball. And he was out there and he's like, come on, Nixon. You gotta get there. Nixon. And you gotta keep shooting. And he goes, Dad says practice makes perfect. And and he didn't know that I was listening. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, it kind of like same thing. It filled me up, and I was like, oh, good, man, he gets it.
I've literally studied parenting for 12 years, and I could honestly tell you, it doesn't pass a week or every couple of days I learn something new. You're never going to be perfect. Let's be honest. You're always going to have hiccups. Let's be honest. But as long as you're trying and you're listening and you're adapting, that's all you could do, right? In the end of the day, that's all you could do. And then, like I said, it's the only real thing I always tell dads is don't live with regrets. Don't live with regrets, because you walk out of that house. I mean, you never know if you're coming back home. It sounds crazy me saying that, but this is the reality of the world, right? So just don't live with regrets. Do everything you possibly can every time you see your kids, and always give them a hug and tell them every day you love them. That's very important. Very, very important, right?
Yeah.
One question I ask all our guests near the end: if something were to happen to you today, and it leads off to that question, I didn't even want it to. In a few words, how would you want to be remembered by your loved ones?
Someone that was kind of blazed their own trail, that always was resilient, always took risk, always loved hard and lived hard, and was compassionate to all people.
I love it. Is there anything you want to leave with our guests, our audience?
When I get asked that question, Jeff, I always say it, and just from my experience now, I've picked up and I've moved 4 different times for work, and I've found that every time that I get tasked or an opportunity is presented that I've been manifesting, there's a lot of fear that comes with that. And a lot of us stay small and think small because we just let this fear override our life of like the what if, the unknown. But to your point, of like maxing out on your potential, right? Not having the regrets. That's kind of how I interpret that. Is like, you got to walk through. You got to lean into the fear. Yeah. That's the one thing I just do tip on people. Just like every time you hit that pit in your gut is telling you yes, but you're too scared to walk through and do it. It's a missed opportunity. It's a missed door that was presented there for you to walk through so you can get to the next level of growth with your relationship, your income, everything in life. And so for me, every time I've walked through that fear, whether it's moving from California to Atlanta to here, I just go through, and it's like the blessings they get bestowed upon me and my family have been unreal.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You can't, yeah, 100%. You can't live with fear. And that's just something I think even with social media and everything nowadays, it's magnified the fear. People are so scared to take chance because they're so scared how people are going to react with them, right? And especially now that you're living in a world where everybody can see everything you're doing, and I think that's the biggest thing too is how society magnifies and rewards you for being the victim. I was talking about this yesterday with somebody, where you put a post on social media saying, hey, I just got fired. You got 30, 40 comments saying you'll be okay. You tell somebody you got a new job, you get one comment, like, oh, good job. So it's like it's you're rewarded for failure. So a lot of people have that mindset, that fear. They're so scared to do anything, right? So I appreciate that. It's a great way to end it today. How do our audience get a hold of you and your podcasts?
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Good question. You can hit me at my website's tyzerevans.com. The podcast is Grind, Sell, Elevate. You can find it on all major outlets, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever. You can find me out there.
Perfect. That's awesome, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Looking forward to jumping on yours, and
yeah, likewise.
Keep up the fatherhood, man. You're doing good.
Yeah. Thank you. No, thank you. I appreciate the advice, and I appreciate your time and having me on the show today.
Thank you, brother.